everybody. I realized I haven't gotten on my regular page to do a Facebook Live in a really, really long time. And I'm sitting outside the orthodontist while my kids get whatever the heck it is that they're getting done. And I thought, I'm bored. I'm going to get on Facebook and talk to people. So I figure that I will give you the rundown of my post that probably popped up today. I haven't even had a chance to check, but every Tuesday I write an email and sometimes I post it to Facebook and sometimes I don't, but I think I did today. And it was all about habits, of course, because that's what I do, is I coach on habits. And this is about the anxiety habit. And I started thinking about anxiety as a habit and really how that might sound to people, especially people who deal with anxiety or deal with teenagers who have anxiety, and how that might sound like a really crappy way to describe it. But then I realized that no, it actually is. It actually is a habit. So I'm going to explain to you what this anxiety loop or this anxiety habit is like. And we can start talking about some ways that you can help yourself or help your teenager if they are in this infinite loop of anxiety, which I lived in for way too long. So when we talk about anxiety itself is not a habit. The physical sensations, for me, feeling like I can't swallow or my chest is tight, or almost feel like my hands fall asleep or my feet start to fall asleep, or my arms almost get achy hot, blood pulls away from my hands. That feeling that I get is very much a signal ooh, you are super anxious. And usually that is triggered by some sort of thing going on around me. It might be something that someone says, it might be something I see on TV, it might be an article that I read. Almost always it's related to some kind of scary disease or scary thing, and it makes my body react, which is normal. Because if you've followed me over on 10,000 Swords, then you know about this little caveman that lives in your head. So you have this part of your brain called the amygdala, and it's basically hasn't changed in millions of years, because its design is really like the Croods. It's like fight or flight. Okay, so if we picture the movie The Croods, if you have kids, you might have seen this. There's this family of cave people, and the dad is always get in the cave, get back in the cave, anytime he thinks anything is wrong. And that is really what's going on in your brain when anxiety happens. So anxiety is sort of like the Croods, and it really is designed to keep you safe and alive. All right, so it's really, really helpful. It's really got a great purpose, and then we just let it go bananas and it shuts us down. And that is where the habit part kicks in. The habit part is actually what we do in response to that caveman that's in our head. Okay, so let's say that you are experiencing physical symptoms of anxiety. So you can tell that you're nervous, you can tell something's up, and you're not really sure. Maybe you know what triggers it, maybe you don't, but you're ooh, I feel scared, and I'm scared of, maybe you can name what it is. So you develop a habit, and your habit is the part that feeds that caveman, or that part of your brain that causes you to become anxious. Okay, so for me, when I would experience anxiety, my first thing was I would have those physical sensations, and I would tell myself some god-awful horrifying story that I made up, because apparently I should write Stephen King type novels or make M. Night Shyamalan movies, because I come up with some scary crap. So I would tell myself a scary story, and then I would cry and I would freak out, and the first thing I would do is pick up my phone and call my dad and be just tell me I'm stupid. Tell me I'm stupid and crazy and that this is ridiculous, and then get mad at me. I would actually call my parents and say, just tell me I'm an idiot, while I'm crying and freaking out. And so my dad would be yeah, that's really stupid. You're being stupid. Just calm down, which don't please don't ever tell someone who's having an anxiety attack to calm down, because it just makes them mad and it makes it worse. But yeah, I begged my dad to tell me I was stupid. And then my mom would, of course, I knew my mom would tell me, like, I remember one time she told me, look, I love you more than anyone else ever in the world, and I am telling you that if there was something wrong, I would be scared, and I'm not scared. And that always made me kind of feel better. My dad thinks I'm crazy, and my mom told me that she would be worried, and she's not. So that was my loop. I would call my parents, just tell me I'm crazy. Or, you know, when maybe you're anxious about doing something and you always go to somebody to be like, hey, you think this is crazy? You think this is that? That is a habit. And what that does is that it temporarily takes the edge off of that anxiety and makes you feel better. But in the long run, you've created a habit of never actually dealing with what's making you anxious. You've just found a coping mechanism that makes you feel good for like a really, really short amount of time. So I might feel better for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or just enough to not freak out. And sometimes it didn't even work. But every time I would go back to the same thing. And my anxiety habit was feeding that caveman in my head. So like, it's okay if you freak out. You just call your dad and he'll tell you you're stupid. And your mom will say, don't worry, I'm not worried. Because that's what I would ask them to do. And it never went away and it never got better. So what I talked about a little bit in the post that you might have seen here, or if you get my emails, was that it's really about not only learning how to manage those physical symptoms of anxiety and learning how to talk to yourself so that you can start rationalizing things before you go bananas, but it's also about breaking that loop and breaking that habit that you fall into that feeds that little caveman in your brain that is just trying to keep you safe. Okay, so it's finding a way to replace that habit with a new habit. So if your habit is, get on, for the love, don't ever do this, but get on Google and Google symptoms. I highly recommend never ever doing that. Ever. Never, ever, ever Google symptoms. Ever. But if that's your habit and you want to break it, you have to find something to intercede and say, you know what, I'm not going to Google these symptoms because I know that Google's going to tell me I've got this horrid problem or something catastrophic is going to happen, which actually is not the truth. So what we do, or what I do as a coach, is I help people create new habits to replace their old habits. So if your habit is anxiety and we talk about, well, what makes you anxious? Well, what do you do when you're anxious? Well, what are some things that we could do instead of what your habit is? For some people, it's overeating. For some people, it is, crying. For some people, it is calling their dad and telling them their story, or calling their best friend, or, locking themselves in the house because they're too afraid to go out and hang out with their friends, or they're afraid they're going to trip and fall and somebody will see them and laugh at them. Whatever that is, that's what I do. I just tend to focus a lot on how to help people with anxiety because that's my game. So yeah, that's really what my email was about. And in case you have not heard, my digital course, which is called The Path to Panic Free, is reopening. It's going to relaunch. The first day that the first lesson comes back out is January 1st, which is great if you're into New Year's resolutions, which I am not. And but if you are and you need a little extra support with that, this could help support a resolution. It's also just a really great time to say, okay, now we're going to get kind of the end of the holidays. We can start focusing on what we want to do to help ourselves do better in 2021, because Lord knows we need a better 2021 than we have 2020. And I'm not even going to say it couldn't get any worse, because it could definitely get worse, but it's not going to. So we're going to make 2021 the year that you get to solve whatever your anxiety issue is. And that is why I'm here, is to tell you that if you want to know more about this, I have a free webinar that's coming up on December 16th, which is next week, I think, December 17th, December 23rd, and December 29th. It's an hour. You come hang out with me, and I tell you all the things about what I do, to what I've done and learned since middle school about how I can really, how I got my anxiety under control. And I'm going to teach you what I do, and I'm going to teach you all of the ins and outs of how that works. And we talk for an hour, and you guys get to ask all of your questions, and I tell you the good things about managing anxiety. And to do that, you can go to www.10,000swords, and that's like 10000 swords, like pirate swords.com/events. And you just pick a day and say, I'm going to show up. And then all you do is just show up. Just show up. So that's what I wanted to tell you today. If you want to know more, you guys can always message me, or you can join me in my group, which is where I normally do these Facebook Lives. And that's 10,000 Swords Coaching right here on Facebook. But like I said, sign up to get my newsletter. Sign up for one of these webinar time slots, because it's an hour and we learn cool things and hang out. And you can ask me all the questions you want to know, even if they're not about anxiety. And I hope you guys are doing great. And I hope that you are having a very good holiday season, because we're in it. We're in it. And it's been a year, and we should totally enjoy this holiday season and get everything we can out of it. It's going to be a good one. All right. You guys take care. I will see you again very soon. See ya.